The office was buzzing with congratulations and fake smiles the day my cousin Adam took over the business our family built from scratch. He walked in like a king, drunk on power, shaking hands and barking orders. Then he called me into the conference room. "I think it's time we move in a new direction," he said, sliding a termination letter across the table. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just smiled and said, "Congratulations." He thought he'd won. But I had built this company from the ground up. He had no idea what was coming next. For over 2 decades, I had poured my life into the company. Long nights, early mornings, missed family events, all sacrifices I made to help turn a small family-run business into a respected name in our industry. My uncle, the original founder, was like a second father to me. He saw my loyalty, my work ethic, and over the years, he trusted me with more responsibility until eventually, I was running the entire operations side of the business. My cousin Adam, on the other hand, was the golden boy who dipped in and out whenever it suited him. He'd show up to company events with flashy suits and hollow smiles, boasting ideas that never left the notebook. But still, he was family, and I never said a bad word about him. When my uncle passed away unexpectedly, the will made it clear Adam would inherit the business. I wasn't surprised, not really. It was his birthright, after all. But deep down, I hoped Adam would see reason, that he'd understand how important it was to keep someone like me involved, someone who knew every crevice of the company. Instead, he walked in on his first day and made his power play. He waited until the team was gathered in the conference room, then casually mentioned I would be moving on as part of a strategic refresh. I remember every detail, how the room fell awkwardly silent, how a few jaws dropped, how Adam didn't even look me in the eyes when he said it. I stood up, tucked the termination letter into my folder, and said, "I wish you all the best." And then I left. People thought I'd be angry. But I wasn't. I was calm. I had seen this coming. I'd been preparing for it in silence. What Adam didn't know was that in the last few years, I'd formed deep relationships with our most important clients. I was their go-to person. When they had problems, they came to me, not the logo on the letterhead. And they had trusted me, not because I was family, but because I delivered. I also had a solid network of employees, people who respected me, who had grown under my leadership. I never acted like a boss, more like a partner. I listened when they had problems. I celebrated their wins. I backed them when things went wrong. Many of them had told me, privately, "If you ever start something of your own, I'm with you." So when I walked out that door, I didn't sulk or spiral. I got to work. Within a week, I'd filed the paperwork for my own consultancy firm. I didn't advertise it. I didn't announce it on LinkedIn or go after my old clients directly. I simply made myself available. And within days, my phone started ringing. "Hey, we noticed you're no longer with the company. Would you be open to helping us privately? Things have been rocky since the leadership change. We need someone who understands the process." I didn't badmouth Adam. I didn't gloat. I simply delivered the same reliability, integrity, and efficiency I always had. Word spread. Clients who were once bound to multi-year contracts began looking for exit clauses. Some even paid penalties to walk away, just to work with me again. Back at the company, Adam was overwhelmed. He tried to reorganize teams, hired expensive consultants, and rolled out flashy initiatives that looked good in theory but failed in execution. He didn't understand the systems. He didn't know the people. And worse, he underestimated what I had built behind the scenes. One by one, employees began to leave. Not all at once, but subtly, over time. A project manager here. A lead analyst there. Some joined me. Others simply couldn't thrive in the chaos he created. The board grew concerned, but Adam spun the numbers to look stable. Internally, however, the cracks were growing deeper. A few months later, I was invited to a major industry conference. It was a subtle recognition of my contribution to the field, and I was honored to speak. To my surprise, several of our old clients were in the audience. Even more surprising, Adam was on the panel right after me. I gave my talk. I didn't mention him. I simply talked about sustainable growth, ethical leadership, and the importance of trust in client relationships. It was direct but not petty. And people listened. After my talk, several clients approached me and said, "We always knew you were the engine behind that company." One of them even added, "We'll be following you wherever you go." Adam's panel? It fell flat. He talked in buzzwords and hypothetical projections. People nodded politely, but the energy was gone. He passed by me in the hallway afterward, his face tight, jaw clenched. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. He was realizing the truth: you can inherit a title, a chair, even a company. But you can't inherit respect. You have to earn that. Adam didn't fall all at once. That's the part most people don't realize. His downfall wasn't loud or dramatic at first, it was slow, awkward, and riddled with denial. He thought that title, CEO, gave him instant command, instant respect. What he never understood is that respect isn't transferred with ownership. It's earned through years of consistency, empathy, and being there when it counts. The first major blow came 6 months after I'd been fired. A key client, a global distributor, pulled out of their contract with the company. Quietly, without drama, they terminated early and sent a polite note. Adam was furious, storming into the office demanding answers. He blamed the sales team, accused the account managers of being lazy, and even fired 2 people on the spot. What he didn't know is that those 2 people had already given notice and were planning to join my firm the following week. That client? They had reached out to me 2 weeks prior, asking if I could help them navigate a tricky expansion project. I did. I solved their problem in 5 days. They never looked back. Adam's second blow came when he tried to launch a new digital platform. He poured thousands into development, hired a shiny tech firm from out of state, and ignored the warnings from his internal team. The system failed within 2 weeks of launch. Orders were delayed, customer complaints flooded in, and key metrics tanked. What did Adam do? He scheduled a town hall meeting and blamed the legacy systems, my systems, for being outdated and difficult to transition from. His mistake? Forgetting that half the staff in that meeting helped build those legacy systems with me. They didn't just disagree, they felt insulted. Morale plummeted. Within a month, 5 more employees resigned, 2 of whom had been with the company for over a decade. Meanwhile, my consultancy was growing quietly. I wasn't trying to compete directly, I didn't need to. I was offering clarity and execution in a space where his company had become noise and confusion. Clients liked that I was selective. I didn't take on everything. I valued trust over scale. Word of mouth became my marketing. But the real moment, the one that changed everything, came at the end of the fiscal year. Adam had scheduled a stakeholder summit. Investors, board members, key partners, everyone was flying in. He planned to give a big presentation, showcasing numbers, graphs, future plans. He thought this would be his redemption arc. What he didn't know was that the board had been quietly investigating the rising number of client losses and internal turnover. Several of the board members had relationships with those lost clients, and they weren't pleased. They started asking around. Some even reached out to me privately. I didn't badmouth him. I told them the truth. the systems had been handed off without transition. The new leadership didn't consult the operations team. There was no listening, only dictating. And the staff? They were suffocating under confusion and micromanagement. At the summit, Adam stood confidently on the stage, flipping through his slides. He talked about disruption, future-facing frameworks, and scaling aggressively. It was all buzzwords, flash without substance. A few people nodded politely, but I could see the board members' faces. Flat. Skeptical. Silent. Then the chairman stood up. "We appreciate your presentation, Adam," he said. "But there are concerns we need to address. Client satisfaction has dropped 38%. Retention is down. Project timelines are being missed. We've spoken to several former team members, some who are key to this company's success, and we're hearing the same story." Adam froze. He stuttered out something about growing pains and transition costs. The room didn't buy it. Then came the final blow. One of the biggest clients, who had quietly moved to my firm, released a public statement praising our work and announcing their official partnership with us going forward. That same client was previously considered the anchor account for Adam's company. The news hit like a lightning bolt. Board members turned to each other. Phones buzzed. The energy in the room shifted. Adam knew. He was losing control, and fast. In a stunning moment of irony, the chairman closed the summit with a line I'll never forget. "This company was built on trust and relationships. It seems we've drifted from that. It's time we revisit the foundation that made us strong." Adam stood still, pale, jaw clenched. He didn't speak to anyone afterward. Just walked out of the room. I hadn't even attended the summit. I didn't need to. I was already moving forward with bigger plans. But the messages poured in that night. You should have seen his face. He never saw it coming. He made the mistake of thinking legacy didn't matter. And there it was, vindication. Not through revenge, but through truth unfolding exactly as it was always going to. The fallout from the summit was swift, brutal, and quietly satisfying, not because I wanted Adam to fail, but because I had warned him. I had tried to hand off the business with grace, to walk away quietly with my dignity intact. But he had fired me with arrogance, like I was disposable, like my decades of sweat and sacrifice could be wiped away with a signature. What came next wasn't my revenge. It was just reality catching up. Within 2 weeks of the summit, 2 more board members resigned in protest of the direction Adam had taken the company. Those resignations weren't quiet, either. They sent internal memos to all senior staff, citing concerns over transparency, culture, and the erosion of long-term relationships with clients and employees. When those memos leaked online, industry blogs picked them up. Suddenly, Adam's company wasn't a success story, it was a cautionary tale. Internally, chaos brewed. Staff morale dipped to dangerous levels. A third of the middle management team put in notice, many citing burnout and lack of strategic clarity as their reason for leaving. Adam tried to hold it together by promoting junior employees too quickly, giving them titles they weren't ready for, hoping it would buy loyalty. It didn't. Without proper mentorship or processes, the junior team floundered, and projects kept missing deadlines. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet, but busy. My phone never stopped ringing. Former clients. Old colleagues. Even new prospects who had watched the summit unfold and realized the value of someone who actually knew what they were doing. I had built trust over the years, and now, that trust was my currency. I brought on a few of my former team members, not out of pity, but because I knew they were capable. We operated lean, efficient, focused. While Adam was battling PR nightmares and staffing holes, we were solving problems, delivering results, and getting referrals left and right. One particular moment made me pause, an email from a legacy client, someone I had on board myself 15 years ago. They wrote, "We stayed with the company because of you. Now that you're gone, it's just not the same. We'd like to transition our account to your new firm. Let us know how to proceed." It wasn't the biggest client, but it was the most symbolic. That one hit deep. Not because I wanted to steal business, but because it reminded me that people don't stick with logos, they stick with people. With consistency. With integrity. Adam, on the other hand, was unraveling. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that he tried hiring a consulting firm to fix the company's public image. They produced a flashy video campaign and updated the company's branding. But no one was fooled. You can't paint over cracks in the foundation and expect the building not to collapse. He tried reaching out to me once. It was a short email. One line, "Can we talk?" I didn't respond. It wasn't out of spite. I just didn't have anything left to say to him. He had made his decision the moment he pushed me out without a conversation, without respect, without an ounce of humility. That door was closed. But word spread that he was feeling the pressure. Investors were pulling out. The company was trying to secure funding but struggling to convince anyone they were stable. And behind closed doors, Adam was reportedly clashing with his own executive team, those he'd appointed just months ago. The media began noticing too. A small industry magazine published a piece titled, "Legacy or Liability? What happens when leadership ignores its roots?" It wasn't a hit piece, but it didn't paint Adam in a good light either. It talked about how the company had once been known for loyalty and long-standing client relationships, and how, under new leadership, those things seemed to vanish overnight. One evening, I got a call from Sarah, the company's former VP of sales. "You've seen what's happening?" she asked. "I've heard bits and pieces," I replied. "They're trying to find someone to take over. The board is pressuring him to step down. I think it's coming soon." I stayed silent. She didn't need to tell me that for validation, I had already moved on. But then came something unexpected. One of the investors reached out through LinkedIn. We had never spoken directly before, but he sent me a message asking if I'd be open to consulting on a recovery strategy for the company. It was surreal. Months ago I had been thrown out like an old coat. Now they wanted me back in, not as an employee, but as a strategist. I didn't say yes. Not yet. I needed to think. I needed to weigh what it would cost, not just in time, but in emotional energy. Could I walk back into the place that had pushed me out? Could I help rebuild something without reigniting old wounds? But the message made one thing clear: the narrative had shifted. Adam was no longer the future. He was the mistake. And I? I was the one they were beginning to realize they should have valued all along. In the end, I never had to lift a finger in retaliation. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need public validation or dramatic gestures. All I needed was time and the quiet confidence that the truth eventually reveals itself. Adam's decision to fire me wasn't just impulsive, it was rooted in ego and insecurity. He thought the title would grant him instant respect, that the corner office meant he had arrived. But leadership isn't declared. It's earned. While he struggled to hold together the mess he created, I was rebuilding, piece by piece, with the very people he had overlooked. Former employees, clients, and partners gravitated toward what we were creating not because we promised flash and noise, but because we offered reliability, integrity, and results. We didn't chase headlines. We delivered value. It was poetic in a way. The man who ousted me to make room for his vision had inadvertently given me the freedom to pursue mine without constraints. I was no longer tied down by internal politics or short-sighted quarterly goals. I was building something leaner, sharper, and more aligned with the values I cared about. Eventually, word reached me that Adam stepped down. Whether it was the board's decision, investor pressure, or simply the weight of his own poor choices, it didn't matter. The empire he thought he'd inherited had slipped through his fingers. But I didn't feel triumphant. Just resolved. Some losses make room for far greater wins. And if there's anything I've learned, it's this: loyalty can't be replaced. Legacy can't be rewritten. And people, real people, remember who stood by them when it mattered most. The office I once worked in no longer exists in the way I knew it. But the relationships I built? They're stronger than ever. The foundation Adam tore down, I rebuilt elsewhere, wiser, quieter, and more powerful than he'll ever know.